Hello, this is your host Akhil Navluri, and welcome to the brand new episode of the Techospace podcast series. In this podcast episode, I'm super thrilled and honored to be welcoming one of the most eminent and prominent industry leaders of the IT space, Mr. Ritesh Arora, who happens to be the seasoned IT leader working for the Big Four consulting firms, and he's based out of Kolkata, West Bengal, India. So, Ritesh, it gives me an absolute pleasure welcoming you to this podcast initiative of mine. Ritesh, how are you doing? And how was the let's say the sports day event that you have attended with your son yesterday?
Sure, absolutely. And Akhil, first of all, thanks a lot. Thanks a bunch. Thanks a zillion to invite me onto your, podcast. I'm so glad that, somebody of your caliber is, constructing podcast in the tech space, inviting tech leaders or inviting, industry professionals because, that is the need of the hour. So I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. The sports day with my son was, really good in the sense that, see, whenever you go to a sports day, it teaches you many lessons in life, right? I mean, biggest of them all being the teamwork, right? And in the IT space, in the IT industries, a leader is as good as the team. I mean, a captain is as good as its team. So what it teaches you is not just the teamwork, the trust, the process, the timing, many things. So I typically make it a point to accompany my son for any sports event like that. Yeah, and it has been from the very beginning also. So it was good. It was fun. Yeah, thank you so much.
I think I can say you're a daddy cool, being a good friends with your son and accompanying him and just having a good time, good quality time with him. So I really love that. So that's amazing, Ritesh. So Ritesh, at the stroke of this hour, let's say without any further ado, let's kick off with our podcast episode. All right. So Ritesh, I'm very much fascinated, whenever I meet, an eminent industry leader like you, the first question that I always ask is, can you give me a timeline of your journey in the IT space?
Sure, Akhil, certainly. Yeah, and a great question, Akhil. I mean, what else is the better way to start with the, the background and how the leader has laid the foundation, right? So, Akhil, I started my journey in year 2000. I was associated with a firm that was based out of Chennai. It was working upon a technology which was upcoming in the market. And then, I shifted few firms. I worked abroad. Initially for first 10 years, I was all into the tech space. Then I moved into management consulting. I spent a good bunch of, I would say, 7 to 8 years, maybe a bit more than that, 9 years into the management consulting. And then, Akhil, I realized that this IT boom is sort of not IT, but AI boom is picking up. And therefore, Akhil, my entire journey of last 20 years basically has been a good amalgamation of your technical work, the management consulting, and now the AI work. And good part is that, like, if you intersect all three of them, the tech work, the business consulting, and the AI work, what emerges, in a Venn diagram, what emerges is a very powerful subset, somebody who can talk technical, somebody who can talk business, somebody who can talk AI. So that
Yep.
gives you, a bit of a unique edge over your competitors. So yeah, journey has been extremely good. Worked in India, worked abroad, multiple countries, and now in my current area, I'm leading the low code, no code along with artificial intelligence in my role. Yeah, but journey has been very fruitful, and God has been very kind. Thank you so much for asking this question.
Amazing. That's a beautiful timeline. Ritesh, now Ritesh, in the starting, you just told me that you moved from the technical consulting side to all the way to management consulting. So I mean, as a viewer or let's say as a listener myself, I am very much quizzed about to ask you this particular question. Like, what's the difference between both of them? This type of consulting.
Sure, absolutely right. Yeah, and great question, Akhil, one more time. And I'm sure, this question will really help, the listeners of this podcast really well that how do you jump? Why do you jump? And what's the difference? I think bang on, really good question. I'm really happy about the quality of questions. So see, when you start on the technical line, Akhil, right, you essentially start as a programmer or as a developer. Then you go on to become, after a few years, after you have gained the prowess, you go on to become a senior developer. From senior developer, you get into the, architecture and design space. And after architecture and design space, you become a principal architect where you are looking after multiple projects or multiple, programs across continents, across, different, industry verticals, right? So that is a typical trajectory. I summarize it one more time. So you start with developer, senior developer, designer, architect, principal architect, right? Now the thing
Yeah.
is, see, once you have reached the principal architect stage, Akhil, at that point in time, because your face time with customer increase so much, and lot many of times, you will not be only talking to the tech stakeholders, the technical stakeholders, right? You will
Yeah.
see that, when you are 13, 14 years in experience, some of your stakeholders tend to become, more business side of things, right? And
Yeah.
that's, you believe that you should also be knowing the business side of story, right? You should be
Yes.
able to articulate the core use cases, the core business functionality and all, right? And Akhil, see, what I've seen in my career is that like I said, people who can talk business and technical lingo, right, are the real ones, who grow up the ladder very fast because they can explain the technical challenges as well as talk through the business use cases, right? So when you come onto the
That's
business
right.
side of things, essentially, you are a lead business consultant. That's, or a business consultant. That's where you start with. Then you move on to become basically a principal consultant. And principal consultant or the consulting head is the typical, I would say, the highest designation that typically you can achieve, right? So now in my case, I was a lead architect in the tech side of things, and then when I moved to the management consulting side of things, I was leading a team of big 100 200 plus people as a
Oh,
consulting lead. Yeah, as a consulting
okay.
lead, exactly, right? And
Yeah.
all these people who were reporting into me, they were from top B schools, globally. So now at this point in time, Akhil, like I said, intersection happened. Intersection happened that, I became a person who was able to talk through the business language, and at the same time, I was able to take customers through the technical solution architecture. A very powerful combination indeed. And that gives you a pretty good edge, yeah. And this
Yeah.
edge is sort of continuing. So that's how is the overall journey, Akhil. Yeah. And then, like I said, business consulting with the time it dwelled into now AI side of things, right? So tech
Absolutely.
plus business plus AI. Yeah.
That's a lethal combination, and yeah, that's a great explanation, Ritesh. So that completely sums up the point for me. Now, Ritesh, according to you, why do you think love and empathy will be continue to be the biggest reason that that some teams scale up and some teams don't? So, what is your view on that?
Right, absolutely right. Yeah. So Akhil, see, I really believe that, when people from different parts of the world, come to work under you or come to work with you, right? Understand that, they are spending good 12, 13 hours of their typical day time, to work, right? See, world is moving fast. We all have pressures, we all have race against time. We all want to grow up, right? At this point in time, the bare minimum, Akhil, which you can give to your team is essentially, love and empathy. Because,
Yeah,
when people join, they too do tend to struggle a little bit, right? I mean, they're not, military grade prepared, large part of population, right? At that
yeah,
point in time, you must realize that you were in their shoes 15 years back, okay? And then
mm,
when you were in their shoes, you really wanted that, I wish there was a manager. I wish there was a leader who could have
exactly.
guided me, who
Yeah,
could have spoken to me with a bit of empathy, who could have shown me the path, right? Not necessarily, Akhil, with your team, but with your peers around, right? See, basically, what I believe is, a good leader is somebody, a leader without a title. You can
yeah,
have 10 people reporting into you or 100 people reporting into you, but with your behavior, with the empathetic nature, with the love around, you can influence maybe 10,000 people around you, right?
that is
So,
right.
when you show these kind of kindness, these kind of human virtues, Akhil, what I have seen is economies of energy come into play. People go extra mile to sort of deliver things for you. And I can tell you, all they need is little love, little care, little emotion, and that's all really. You may
100%.
not be able to solve their tech problems at times, but then if you can treat an individual with the respect, Akhil, I think people go extra mile, and that's when, Akhil, I have literally seen miracles getting created. Miracles, yeah. So that's why I believe, very underrated skill, very underrated quality, but then that plays the most prominent role in people's career, people's output. It's love and empathy. Okay.
Absolutely. So talking about love and empathy, or let's say, that camaraderie kind of quotient here. So, I
That's
mean, you
right.
must have worked with a lot of, people from different, different parts of the world. Let's say, from people from the UK, people from Australia or from US. So when you talk to them, do you, ask them, what's your favorite, let's say sports team? What's the best place to visit in your city? Do you, make them comfortable, with all those aspects?
So absolutely right. So Akhil, it's important to break the ice, right? I mean, if you're only talking about project deliverables, can you give me this, in next 5 hours? I mean, those equations are sort of, very, I would say, brittle. I mean, they are only based upon your, formal relationship, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then, see, I typically tell my teams that, generally you start with a day as hi or hello without a reason. Whether the person has to give you a deliverable or not, all you can do is basically carry a smile on your face, say hello to, your entire team without any cause. And then, you will see these people actually, becoming your friends, right? And once,
Exactly.
that camaraderie is established, I think things become, non-linear in productivity. Also, Akhil,
Exactly.
one of the principles that I've followed in life is basically, you know, uh, every Friday, every Friday, I would talk
Hmm.
to 5 team members, over
Okay.
lunch. It was, any talk besides work. So we will not talk work, but we will talk
Yes.
everything. Favorite sport, favorite place, what do you want to eat, what is going in your life, right? What is the latest movie which you saw? What are the books you
Oh,
have read? What are the books I have read? And typically do a lunch with them. So these things actually go a long way in sort of building up that camaraderie, as you said. And yeah, so absolutely start with the personal thing, because that is the link onto, or that is the foundation onto which your bigger picture is based upon. Yeah, so absolutely right, Akhil. Yes.
that's amazing. This actually, clones to one of the, podcasts that I did with one person called Richard Clark, and he's based out of UK. And this
Mhm.
person, he has this 40 years of experience in the Salesforce, technology. So this person, he started an initiative called Beer Force UK, which actually, deals with the mental health of people. He actually
Okay.
gathers people and, to restaurants, to pubs. And, he says beer is just for the namesake of it, but you can have a good time with juice and,
That's
with
right.
soft drinks as well. So
That's right. Absolutely. That's right. And and Akhil, I'll tell you exactly. Great question. People with whom you have these informal conversations, I have seen them from transforming themselves in from a very mediocre person to a rock star. So like I said, that when people are so comfortable, so motivated with you, they figure out their own strengths, how they can help their manager. And I'm telling you, it works like a total charm. So bang on, you have to start with the informal note and then basically come on to the the
absolutely.
professional side of things. Yes,
That's the perfect recipe for success, I would say.
that's right, Akhil. Absolutely.
Yeah. Amazing, Ritesh. Now, I am, very much curious to ask you this one. Why do you wish everyone, enough rain, slash struggle in life? Why do you have the, that notion towards that?
And good one. Akhil, I'm sure you are watching some of my LinkedIn posts and LinkedIn podcasts, right? Where I talk
Absolutely.
about I wish you rain, right? So, 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 Akhil, I follow certain personalities, right? In terms of looking up to them, what makes them so successful and all. And see, one of them is actually Jensen Huang. Jensen Huang is essentially, the founder and the, I would say, chairman of NVIDIA, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at his life story, the guy actually used to be a toilet cleaner, and today he's the founder of a $1 trillion firm. Yeah, trillion
That's
dollar
like
firm.
huge. Yeah.
Unreal epitome of success in life, right? And if you listen to him, you can actually relate back a lot many things in in you back in your career. So
Right.
therefore, in my one-on-one with people, in my town halls, when I'm addressing to the teams, I do wish them some rain, because some rain, some struggle, Akhil, helps them to raise their tensile strength, right? Tensile strength is basically the point at which the breakdown happens, right? So in essence, when teams face some struggle, be it technology, be it personal, be it professional, right? They generally come out more stronger out of that, and then they are able to face any challenge, right? Bigger challenges in life. For an example, if they have faced a lot of struggle, and in their professional life, if a customer says, what, I want to have a presentation tomorrow, I want to have a this AI presentation tomorrow, they will not break down, they will not get nervous. They have faced a lot of things in life, right? So they'll be able to take it with a bit of a composure and build it up. So Akhil, there's a very good proverb which says that you don't know how strong you are unless being strong is the only choice you've got, right? So that's why,
Exactly.
to bring out this element of strength in them, I tell
Yeah.
them, I wish you some rain in life, I wish you some struggle in life. Initially, people get a little confused and offended also. They say, why are you wishing that? Why are you not wishing us good luck? Because good luck will make them soft, not ready for the world. So that's why a bit of struggle is needed for all of us. Yeah. And see,
Indeed.
more importantly, Akhil, see, whenever I hire for a very critical role,
Yeah.
one of the deciding criteria I'm telling you now, maybe for the first time in the podcast or to maybe to any person, I ask them about their life stories. So besides technical skills is one part. How good you know AI? How good you know business consulting? How good you know tech consulting? This question that tell me the story of your life, and I ask them like which incidents
Hmm.
shaped you up the most. So then
Okay.
when people open up and then they tell, okay, I faced this challenge, and then there are
Right.
different types of challenge, and then they also tell me how did they overcome that. That gives you a great perspective of how immune this person is to the to the real life, and that's how we pick up people. So that's the essence of Rain. I don't wish them bad luck, I don't wish them struggle forever, but a bit of a struggle
Yeah.
in good way. Yeah, that's
Amazing.
how it is.
So I think Ritesh, you're also doing a podcast in the offline, getting and asking people their, life story and getting to know them, you know, before
In some
starting work
sense.
or, collaborating with them, in your project.
That's right, Akhil. Yeah. So we have lot many things in common. I'm so glad. Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why, the conversation is also cloning here.
Superb. Superb. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing, Ritesh. Now, Ritesh, can you give me an insight, on working on the latest tech, that will keep everyone in demand at the moment?
Sure. Absolutely right. Yeah. So Akhil, great question, because see, world is changing, or the technology is changing at the blink of an eye. And every 6 months you will see that, there is a newer technology which is coming in the market, and, the older skills becoming irrelevant. But having said that, Akhil, there are 5 or 6 technologies. If people focus upon, I think they can have a really good career, right? Number one, of course, it's like underscoring artificial intelligence. The compounded annual growth rate, Akhil, for artificial intelligence today is actually more than 55%, which is the highest across all technologies. So if you can, learn data scientist side of things, machine learning, computer vision, number crunching, I think you will have a glorious career. So that is one. Second one being, your cloud technologies, which is like learning AWS, Google Deployment Cloud, Microsoft Azure. I think extremely, much in demand.
Yeah.
Then, follow basically, the certain technologies which are quite, I would say, stabilized. Blockchain, cyber security, low code, no code, CRM, these kind of things. Yeah. So, if people stick to this gamut of, 5 or 6 areas, Akhil, they really can, I think, have a very stable career, stable jobs. Yeah, but at the same time, there are a lot of innovations happening in these areas also. So
Yep.
they can actually, from time to time upgrade their part. But broadly speaking, fundamentally speaking, these are 5 or 6 technologies, Akhil. Yeah.
Amazing. So, you just gave me the idea about AI and, all the other latest technologies now. So, Ritesh, when you started your journey in 2000, what was the technology, that you were blown by, that you have that fanboy moment, or let's say when you're young, you have this moment that, wow, this technology is, leading edges. So did you have that moment, or literally, or let's say, did you come across any technology of that sort?
Sure, sure. And Akhil, wonderful. Really liking, these questions, because see, I'll tell you, these questions will, allow the young crop of people to figure their way out and how can they stay relevant. So I think a brilliant question once again. So Akhil, when I was so, I'll maybe take a step back and tell you that, when I was building my formative years in the in corporate world, I used to read a lot of books, lots of books.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
And one of the books, which I read was ages back. It was called as Selling the Dream by Guy Kawasaki. Selling the, Kawasaki used to be an Apple evangelist, and he quotes Steve Jobs at many places. So what Steve Jobs used to
Hmm.
say was that, like, don't puck where the ball is going to be. So we don't play ice hockey where the puck
Yeah.
is. Always,
Yes.
always try to do next new things, next new shiny objects, because customers also do not know what they want. If you keep on showing them the new values, new technologies, new business cases, they will continue to keep on opening up their wallets. That's what they say. So
Hmm.
this habit of, and this thing got ingrained into my mind, Akhil. And at that point in time, while I would do mainstream little bit, I would also do the technology, which is trying to shape up in the market. So I started with, first shiny technology, XML. And then apparently, I was one of the very rare people in my firm at that point in time in the year 2000s and all, who knew XML, right? And there was a fanboy moment because, when you are that
Yeah.
specialist person, people flock up to you, right? So this pattern continued, and then we picked up something on mobile development ahead of time. We picked up things on location intelligence, blockchain, the tech career, and then we picked up RPA, that robotic process automation, and
Yeah.
now AI. So, like I said, Akhil, two steps ahead of the crowd. I think will really help everyone to be sort of stabilizing their career in, and that's what has stayed with me till date. And so that's point number one. Now,
Okay.
point number two is Akhil. You know, now you would have seen all this learning, putting in effort is basically being a student all your life. So even though
Right.
you become principal consultant, you become director, you become senior director, you become a VP, the day you stop being student, the day you stop being learning new things, you will get, I would say, redundant in no time, Akhil. Absolutely no time, right?
Yeah.
So being a student, I spend still a lot of time over the weekend, going through courses, classes, online lectures.
Wow.
I impart them also. Yeah. So that's how, a couple of years back, I did my master's in artificial intelligence and machine learning, all programming. It's tough, but then that's the strength of your character. Yeah. So that's how Akhil, the overall thing spans out, and going ahead of time, not too much in future, but maybe 6 months, 1 year in future. I think that's the way to go. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a very insightful point, Ritesh. I just love your, your elaboration about that. Now, now, Ritesh, like, what is your, take on the importance of, having a right manager, slash a mentor to guide an individual in the IT industry?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and again, another wonderful question, Akhil. Uh, Yeah, Akhil, as much as it is important to get the right mentor, it is equally difficult, right?
Hmm.
Difficult as in, see, mentor is not necessarily your manager, but mentor is somebody, who can actually guide you towards the future, tell you about the newer technologies, tell you how to cross the organizational barriers, and
Yes.
many other things, right? Now, see, when people come and join the organization, I can tell you that, they are overwhelmed with the project work, the so-called struggle start, right? I mean, the rain starts, which we spoke about that earlier, right?
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
after 1 2 years, they are a little puzzled. Should they pick up A technology? Should they pick up B technology? Should they go for their masters, or should they continue on the tech path, right? What are the career choices? Or, should they jump into management side of things, right? So it is a big, I would say, cocoon. And unless you have got a mentor who has lived this life pragmatically, failed, succeeded, and can give you the practical, viewpoints on forward, it's
That's
difficult.
right.
It's very difficult. See, what happens is then people end up in picking up wrong choices, jumping companies, and then, regretting it and not finding the optimal way out, right? So that's why I say, Akhil, it is extremely important to find a good mentor, but you have to be very lucky to find somebody who has crossed this path, traversed this path, has a practical
100%.
knowledge, and at the same time is open to spend his or her time with you to coach you, guide you. Yeah, so in fact, I would recommend that all the industry leaders, who are sharp, good enough, they should
Hmm.
spend some of their times with the newer generation and tell them that how can they pick up new things. Otherwise, it's like little struggle for the newer people. Yeah, but brilliant question, Akhil. I'm loving the way you have done the research on your questions. Superb.
Yeah. Thank you, Ritesh. And Ritesh, you'll be glad to, understand this. Or let's say if I, quiz you about this particular question. I mean, you told me that, mentorship is required in the IT industry. If
Right.
we, go a little bit back in time, did you, ever,
Sure.
come across a mentor, who helped you out through, who guided you so much, till, I mean, for where you are right now?
Superb. Yeah. Wonderful. Right. Great stuff. So, Akhil, there have been three or four people. Okay, there have been three or four people, and like I said, uh, one of them was extremely tech savvy, but a tough nut to crack. Though he was not my, yeah, though he was not my mentor, but silently observing him, I learned a lot. So he was
Right.
the guy, who would talk business and tech in one go, but not very people friendly. So you need not be,
Mhm.
getting the direct mentorship from them, but just
Yeah.
observe them. How do they conduct,
Mm.
right? So that is
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
set of people. Second set of mentors are those people, like, and I've been blessed enough to have, those managers, including my current one, right? They are like, those empathetic people which they guide you onto many aspects, right? Power of networking, power of being kind-hearted. One of the mentors actually told me that, Ritesh, art of living in the professional world is actually art of giving. Okay. And
Mm.
that is so powerful. So whatever
Yeah,
IPs you create, whatever projects you do, whatever, solutions you create, give it. And more you give it, more people will sort of admire you, more you will get back. So like I said, including my current manager, right? Amazing people. So, but again, see, in this 20 plus years of career, I can tell you that maybe maximum four mentors. And that's why I
yeah,
say, Akhil, that finding out a right mentor is really important. You have
it's
to
the
be lucky
difficult thing.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, not all of them will be people centric, but then you have to change your way of operating and observe them. How do
mm.
they sort of conduct themselves? Yeah, but it's extremely important, Akhil. I hope I was able to paint a good picture of why a mentor is needed. So in summary, if you don't have a mentor, you will struggle for the direction, right? The
That's
way
right.
IT is changing. If you have a mentor, you will have a much relatively easier path. But having said that, Akhil, underlying thing is that there should be a zing factor in you so that mentor is also enticed to give his time to you. So that's how it is, Akhil. Yeah. But overall, you do need a mentor. Yeah.
That is right. When the previous company where I worked, there, I mean, they used to tell that, I came from being an intern to being let's say a junior consultant, and I was in the batch
Sure.
two. And later, once our POC was done, let's say our training was done. So we were actually, assigned to mentors. So first, start joining in a tech company, it was very difficult for me to,
Hmm.
approach people. But then
Hmm.
when I started, understanding, everyone, then my boss just told me, do not get hesitate. You can ask anyone in this company. Do not have
Correct.
any inhibition of, asking people. If you have inhibition, I think you will go nowhere. But no
Correct.
one is going to say anything to you. Just ask them. Just take their time
Yes.
and, get the things right from them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Akhil, this is such a good thing that, your leaders told you, because unless you ask, answer is always a no. So you better ask, right? And when people
Yes.
are, open, conducive around you, then, there's a magic in the air. So absolutely I agree with that. Yeah. Asking is very, very important. Yeah. More relevant questions you ask, more good answers you get. Absolutely, Akhil. Good.
The initiative has to start from us, and then, they will we get the reciprocation from their end, from the
Absolutely right.
mentors.
And Akhil, what I'm liking is basically, see, you're also coming from, IT side of things. And you are somebody who has seen some of these finer nuances, right? So that's why I understand that, how come your questions are not that generic ones, but they address,
Yeah.
the typical problems which people face. So good one. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Ritesh. I'm just having a lovely conversation, conversing with you here. Now, Ritesh, heading on for the next, now it's all about the AI boom. Everything is like AI right now. So I would like to, take an opinion from your end. So on that note, would you like to, give me a spotlight, into the latest trend that talks about the race with AI?
Race with AI, yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, I think that's a good question, and let me see how to phrase it right. So, Akhil, what I did was I did post, a small 3 minutes podcast onto LinkedIn yesterday, right?
Okay.
And see the way AI is basically, changing its trajectory. You have to really divide it into three time frames. Time frame number one, is AI mainstream? Answer is 100% yes. We may or may not recognize it, or we may become an ostrich, who's hiding its head in the sand and then say AI is a bubble. Answer is it's not a bubble. It's not a bubble at all. See, if you go to a YouTube today or if you go to a Spotify today, they pretty much know what song to show it to you because they know you apparently better than at times you yourself, right? Point number
Yes.
one, right? Point number two is, right, I mean, if you have read about AI a lot, and some people say it's a passing fad, it's a bubble. See, they have said, the people or the society has said all these things before any major trend. They said mobile is not going to last. One of the guys said maybe there's a space for five mainframes engine in the world. Five mainframes, okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
the IBM founder actually. But these trends actually become mainstream, and then, Akhil, if
Hmm.
we don't keep up the pace with them, we tend to get outsmart or irrelevant very fast, right? So coming back to my point, AI, uh, AI 2024 to 2025, the year which just passed by, this was
Yeah.
a year of machine with a human being. Okay, so machine with a human being means, let's say you have a electric car. Electric car is able to book its own service and you approve it, right? Number one.
Hmm.
Or a insurance firm, you know, machine files a claim or decides the authenticity of a claim, somebody else approves it. So from 2024 to 2025, it was largely about human in the loop. So machine is the trigger, human is the approver. That is
Approval,
24,
yes.
25. Okay. Now come to 25 to 26. Now in this case, what happens is, Akhil, it's all about machine to machines now. Okay. So for
Hmm.
machine to machines would mean that, a car meets with an accident, it is able to file its own claim. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. You have a wealth
okay.
management portfolio. Yeah, yeah. You have a wealth management portfolio which automatically rebalances itself based upon the geopolitical and financial
Hmm.
environment in the world. You
Right.
need not go there and say that, okay, let's put my 20% into equity, 30% into derivatives, maybe 10% into crypto. It will keep on changing its, balancing depending upon the market factors, right? So that is
Yep.
machine to machine. This part is coming in 26, a bit of 27. Now in 27, Akhil, what's going to happen is we will understand that the collective intelligence of machine will outsmart the collective intelligence of human beings. And
Hmm.
human beings will be able to only define the guardrails, the compliance, and the prompts. Rest, everything will be done by machine. So for an example,
Hmm.
I'll tell you how it will happen. Let's say there is a supply chain firm, okay,
Yep.
which procures parts from 20 different vendors. Okay. In 2027, what will happen is the AI inside this firm will scan all the vendors, will
Hmm.
negotiate with them, and will order on your behalf, depending upon quality, depending upon past history, depending upon public ratings, depending upon trust, and so on and so forth. So
Right.
basically, it's all machine to machine. It's very sci-fi kind of a movie that we are going to watch it, right?
Hmm.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So that's how, Akhil, like I said, we have to divide it in time frames. What we are seeing AI now will become little irrelevant in next 1 year and will
Yep.
totally change the landscape in next year and a half. That's how, are the bigger drivers now. Yeah. And this is
That
basically,
can.
out there in public. I mean, Gartner is
Hmm.
talking about it, MIT Sloan is
Hmm.
talking about it. So all you have to go basically to read the such
Hmm.
generals. Yeah. But
Absolutely. That
fascinating. Fascinating,
it,
right? Yeah.
it's
So a simple
fascinating and
example,
scary
okay, I'll give you a
again.
simple example.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you are driving a EV car in Australia, okay,
Hmm.
let's say the car breaks down, okay, car will be able to scan nearest 5 repair shops, which one is the best for you, best rate, will send them a SOS signal automatically, most economical, and then the help or the breakdown vehicle will come from them all automatically. You as a human being is irrelevant in the picture. That's how we are headed
Damn.
towards.
That's really, really scary. I mean, but for that, let's say, someone has met with an accident and,
Yep.
it has, completely scanned, what is the best repair shop that I have
Yes.
nearby in Sydney or let's say in
Yep.
Melbourne. So for that, let's say to reject that kind of an approval or let's say to reject that kind of advances from the AI. I mean, do you think the human in the loop will be there, person who's actually, let's say, at the front seat of it, not the person who's driving the car, but the person who has manufactured that particular thing? Do you think that he has the ability to take it a little bit back and add the human?
No, sure, sure, absolutely right. Yeah. So Akhil, the way it is going to be, human in the loop will become optional. Up to you how you want to basically set it up. You want to say that, okay, I want to still see what is the recommendation given by machine, and then I will approve that, right? So for an example, you don't want your wealth management portfolio to be governed by all machine. What if machine gives me random recommendations, right? So you want to
Yeah.
see basically, right? You want to see,
Hmm.
but see, point is this, right? Akhil, point is this, and I'll tell you a very pragmatic example. If you are reading about Amazon, Amazon has filed a patent for shipping first, shopping later on. So I'll explain you that. Today, when you go to Amazon, you pick up men accessories, you pick up good, nice Louis Philippe shirt for Akhil, you pick up, let's say, few books, per month. Okay. And your whole browsing continues, your whole shopping continues with Amazon. So this model is called as select first, shop later, right? Because you are selecting
Hmm.
first and then Amazon is shipping later, right? Over a
Hmm.
period of time, Akhil, over a period of time, Amazon's engine becomes so intelligent that if you sign up for a service, and that service is called as shipping first, buying later, which means that it will be able to figure out that this month what is Akhil wanting, it will ship it automatically.
Oh.
And
Hmm.
the engine, Amazon engine is so confident that they are thinking that out of five things which are shipped, you will pick up three. So all
Hmm.
machines, yes, that's the magic, right? We are getting into a video game kind of a thing now, right? Unreal.
Totally, totally like a Spielberg movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, good, but great
Yeah.
conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely, Ritesh. Now, Ritesh, according to you, why, according to the famous saying, or let's say, the way you have also coined it, eating the big fish, how do you think, the challenger brands can, beat the bigger competition? Like, what's your view on that?
Sure. So yeah, I think great question, Akhil. One more time. So Akhil, I did mention it, right? Going to the older Steve Jobs, connotation, correct?
Yeah.
If you keep on building the newer things in the market, which have a business value, aided by the latest technology, aided by a lot of I think you are going to have I think a blast or fun in life, right? See, one of the challenge with big firm is that sometimes some big firms, owing to the multiple levels of bureaucracy, at times they are not so conducive to change, right? So conducive to change. So that's where these startup firms or these firms which are so agile, so nimble, they come up and they build up things so fast that I mean they change the whole status quo, correct? I mean, for an example, see, we
Yeah.
used to give we used to give an example. So okay, let's understand this. In US there used to be Walmart, there used to be Sears, right? And used to
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
Tesco or Sainsbury and all, right?
That's right.
Which
Yeah.
are your daily groceries. Amazon came in and Amazon said, come buy with me, same day delivery. If you're a Prime member, same day delivery, right?
Okay.
Super
Yeah.
fast. Super fast, right? As a result, many firms, many stores went bankrupt, and Amazon was the king of e-commerce groceries for a long time to come. Now people have gone one step further. Now, if visit India lately, or if you have visited India lately, this time of one day has got reduced to 10 minutes, right? I mean, there are two or three forms like Swiggy or like a Blinkit. You can pick up grocery and basically in 10 minutes it arrives. Unreal,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I was reading about one of the young American CEOs lady who visited India, and she had to actually, she forgot her Indian, this dress in the US, back in the US, and she was struggling to what to wear and what to, and she said that I wish I was in US because I would have bought it from Amazon because Amazon would have delivered this dress in one day. Then somebody told her that out here in India, you get these dresses in 10 minutes. She couldn't believe it. So then she went to the portal, she selected the dress, and boom, in 10 minutes, the wedding dress was delivered to her. So that's what I'm saying, right? So, nimble model, agile model, delivering a business value, customer centricity, and being first in the market. I think these are the four or five principles, Akhil, by which I think challenges brand can really eat the big fish. See, nobody remembers
Indeed. Yeah.
Akhil. Nobody remembers the perfection. Nobody remembers the third person in space. Nobody remembers the fourth person who invented tube light. People remember the first man on the moon. People remember the first person who invented electricity. So that's how you have to go. You have to be first in the market, at the max second in the market, not beyond that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when we talk about, the person who has invented, the first thing,
Yeah.
like apart from, all the people that, you have mentioned, is there any other person, in your, since you read a lot of books, like, has inspired you the most, or let's say, he's the game changer, with respect to the IT industry. Who was that? Who would that be?
Great question, right? See, in terms of visionary, Akhil, I think, Steve Jobs, because, he was able to design things from the business side of things, right? See,
Yeah.
no matter how good tech savvy things you create, if they don't impart a business value, I think, there's very limited sense in, putting all the big dollars into any of the technical innovation, right? So I think if you read, a lot of Steve Jobs books, basically, I think they help you a lot, definitely. There is one, there's one book, I'm forgetting the name of the author, but it is called as The Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs. So,
Oh,
see,
okay.
yeah, presentation secrets of Steve Jobs. Now, Akhil, Steve Jobs was arguably the best salesperson in the world. I mean, if you
Yeah.
have seen the launch of iPhone, that video actually broke the internet for the first time, right? Big
Yeah.
time. And
Absolutely.
it actually ended a lot many existing phone brands like BlackBerry or many other phones, and then iPhone reign in the supremacy till Android, caught up with them, right? So yeah, so Innovation Secrets of Steve Jobs or Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs, these are two great books. They have inspired me a lot. Second person, which I really look up to, though of course I haven't got a chance to meet him, but someday maybe, is like I said, Jensen Huang, right? This Nvidia guy, from
Yeah.
story from being a toilet cleaner to the boss of $1 trillion firm, right? So what he says is work extremely hard. He says talent is overrated. Talent can only take you this far, but when you continuously practice, right? At that point in time, you are having a massive edge over your peers, your competitors, and all that stuff. Yeah. So broadly, these two people, Steve Jobs and Jensen Huang. Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah. Akhil, how
Absolutely.
about
I
you?
think
Whom do you look up to? I mean, you know.
me, I have like, a different roster list altogether. I don't know. I'm like totally inspired. I was reading I was actually, fascinated by this one. I'm a huge fan of Bill Gates,
Okay.
the Microsoft, what do I say? The Microsoft big king, the king
Sure.
of IT, I would call him. And then there's one person called Satya Nadella, because he comes from the
Yes.
place where I am from Hyderabad. And,
Very
I've heard
good.
a lot of good things about him. And I've actually
Hmm.
done a podcast with a person of Microsoft who worked with Steve Jobs. And
Wow.
he told me beautiful anecdotes about, Steve Jobs and Satya Nadella. But again, having
Sure.
said that, the person, the story that I was actually supremely fascinated was the story of how Xbox came into picture. You know,
Okay.
how they caught up. Actually, computer games was never a priority for Microsoft,
Mhm.
but seeing
Sure.
PlayStation, Microsoft actually had to, gear up their game. And Steve Jobs, I'm sorry, and Mr. Bill Gates, he gave them, a particular time that, this is the presentation you need to give me. And he fitted them against one team. And it was
Sure.
like a complete cutthroat thing. But the story of Xbox always fascinated me, like how, a no, let's say, something that is in the least priority became the huge priority. So that is something
Sure.
I'm actually, blown up by.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's so good to know, Akhil. Yeah. I mean, absolutely right. See, people who have made it this big, they certainly carry, some personality which have helped them to, stand this competitive edge. So I think that's very good. Yeah. Absolutely, Akhil. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my take on it. Now, Ritesh, you have worked completely extensively, in the IT industry. So having said that, are there any interesting success stories and anecdotes, that you have experienced in your entire journey that you would like to, share in this podcast session?
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I would love to. I'm, just trying to recollect. There are many, but I'm trying to recollect the best one.
Okay.
Mm, yeah. So, about 6 years back, Akhil, we were invited for a multi-million dollar bidding. Okay. I mean, a presentation. Okay. It was in Manila, quite in between where you are and where I am, in between,
In
that area,
Philippines,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, of
Manila. Yep.
course. Yeah.
And at that point in time, yeah, exactly. At that point in time, we as in, my firm was completely underdogs. There were two big fours, and there was one firm, which was incumbent. So we were basically one against three, and we were all set to lose. And then at that point in time, our people, my manager, my leadership thought that chances are extremely bleak, but let's go and try. No harm in trying. Okay. And Akhil,
Yeah.
just to tell you that this is one of those, the customer who was, throwing the RFP is in top five IT firms in the world, top five IT product firms in the world. Okay. And like I said, we literally stood very minimal chances. Okay. But Akhil, see, what happens is, when you are wanting, with great desperacy that I need to go and impress upon them, I need to go and put my best foot forward, you prepare multiple
Yeah.
times, right? Akhil, what I've seen is that, when you put in so much of effort, then the answers come flawlessly. Okay, literal flawlessly. Okay. So we went there, and like I said, the format was basically on day one was that it will be big four number one, big four number two, third incumbent, and us in a common room, and customer was basically explaining the problem statement. And this is,
Right.
one of the incidents very close to my heart. So
Hmm.
customer starts, preparing their sort of, sharing their problem statements and all. It was basically a vice president of the customer coming from US.
Okay.
And Akhil, when you are prepared so much, when you are wanting to make a dent, right? Then, I think, you may call it a little superstitious, but I believe, you are guided by the universe, right? You are guided by universe. So what
Yeah.
happens is customer was asking question, I was responding. Other three guys, their representative were just watching. So customer is asking, I'm responding. Customer is asking, I'm responding. Then I'm asking questions, customer is responding. So by afternoon, it became just a dialogue between two of us. Rest were like sort of silent people. And Akhil, what happened was at one point in time, somehow I knew the question which customer was going to ask. I don't know, maybe it's because of preparation that you do, or maybe you're so well prepared. So the moment customer asks a question, you have a spot on answer for that, which is 10 on 10. And
Yeah.
it went like a total charm. And then next day, though RFP was still a week away, customer called up my leadership in India and saying that if Ritesh is going to be part of this team, I am going to
Wow.
award this project, right? So it
Excellent.
was just a very surreal experience, right? So point is this, Akhil, right? I believe in the power of practice a lot. And then, when you are super focused, when you are like, just looking at that one goal to bring it back, you develop something called as, reality distortion, right?
Mhm.
That's a term, right? Reality distortion. Then customer
Yeah.
is just focused on to you. You are focused on customer. The rest,
Yep.
everything is irrelevant, right? So yeah, so that's, and then we won the project also. So it was very prestigious victory for us. And this, memory is still sort of, fine grained into my overall, yeah, journey. But yeah, very proud moment, Akhil. Yeah. Akhil, how about you? I mean, you have encountered any such situation which is a very fond memory that you have?
The fond memory which I, encountered, it's not like a fond memory because I just started, my journey very, very recently. Let's say,
Sure.
yeah, I mean, less than 6 years or 5 years. But I do remember one thing, when all my colleagues were there and suddenly we were in a pub and suddenly all the foreign representatives or let's say the foreign industry leaders, came from
Sure.
Scotland, England, US, everyone were there. So my friends, everyone were a little bit, sure, they were scared, how do we break a conversation with them? Because, our culture is very different. How do we talk to them? So I was
Sure.
the first person to just leave from my seat and I said, hey, how are you doing? So that memory, still lingers with me because, I mean, first we understand, okay, they come from a foreign country and, it's always a little bit scary. But once you speak to them, you will learn a lot.
Yes.
What I
Absolutely.
feel is, when you speak with people, from English speaking countries, you will hear those quotes or quotations that you have never heard, even if you watch a lot of Hollywood movies. Trust me.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, super. And exactly. And see, those quotes, those quotation, those narrations are coming from their life experiences, right? So it's so valuable to know. Okay, very good. Yeah, very glad to know, Akhil. Good stuff. Yeah.
I can, correlate your example to, one football player that I was actually shocked. That was in 2010. It's some,
Sure.
I'll just go with the football chronology because I'm a huge football fan myself.
Sure.
So there's a league called UEFA Champions League. So it's like, all the big clubs of Europe, they compete against each other
Mm,
and, they follow the group
mm,
stage knockout, you call it everything. So there was one
mm.
player from Wales and his name was Gareth Bale and he was playing for a team called Tottenham. So Tottenham is an
Okay.
English team. So he went all the
Sure.
way to the Master Grandia Stadium of San Siro, which is
Sure.
like the let's say the birthplace of Milan's football teams. Like two teams come from there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this player, no one had any expectation that Tottenham is going to win against Inter Milan. But this guy, out of all the people, he was
That's
underrated.
right.
He went and he's scoring goals. Again like three goals like against Inter Milan because Inter Milan is a big team in Italy, and I'm like, from where did this come from? Like how did even this player force his way upon? But he's a very underrated player. But that is
Sure.
something that actually connects a lot. I still remember that moment watching on TV.
Superb, superb. That's so inspirational, Akhil. That's so inspirational, right? And Akhil, see, you asked a question, a few minutes back about, eating the big fish, right? How challenges brand can, sort of go against the established players, right? And Akhil, see, for all the viewers of our podcast, right, there's a very good book called as The Greatest. This is from a table tennis champion called as Matthew Syed. I think, if you read that book, you will find umpteen examples of, how underdogs sort of, go and challenge the established players. Yeah. So, I can relate to that. But a good example, this, soccer example, very good, Akhil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
actually links a
On their
lot to yours,
day, sorry.
It actually links a lot to yours, the example that you shared.
Correct.
And that was the immediate thing that, struck my mind. I'm like, yeah, these two things actually clone.
Ah, awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Very good, Akhil.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Ritesh, now I'm pretty much keen to understand, like, what is your take on the role of, autism spectrum in the IT industry?
Okay. Sure. So from journey to sort of, beating people to now, this social side of things, right? Autism,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Akhil, you know, as much as the sensitive subject is this, it is also, I would say, very close to my heart. It's very, I would say there's something sacred in, when you meet autistic people. Really believe that, they are special child, they are very gifted people, right?
That
See,
is
one of
true.
the things, Akhil, one of the things which I have, observed, and I've spent some time in certain NGOs, where I've gone and visited them. I do go there maybe once in few months, to talk to them, though language is still a barrier and all. But I can see what I've, found out is that, these autistic people more often than not, they are extremely good at one trait, some hidden trait. So somebody who's not able to talk may be very good in programming. Somebody who's not able to converse or express his things may be very good at painting, right? So
Yes.
there will be always a very underrated skill. Now, challenge with our society is basically that we believe that okay, he or she is an autistic child, and there therefore he should be sort of treated like very separately. That is
Mm.
fine, but rather there should be a conscious effort, maybe by psychologists or maybe by trained
Yeah.
doctors, to figure out what this person is good at. Because in my experience, I can surely tell you that 99% of time these guys are marvelous at something really good, which people cannot even believe. Now, without naming, I would say, people who are rocking the world now, and maybe, some of the leading people, they they do have these autistic capabilities, right? They may not be the best speakers, they may not be the best presenters, but the way they are rocking in the market because they are able to tap into that special strength of theirs, either with some help by parents or by psychologists or by some doctors. But like I said, they do carry some really invincible, capabilities. And I think, we should spend some time to figure that out. And then we should see them prospering in life also than the way they are treated now. Akhil, that's my, viewpoint. Yeah.
Yeah. On a filmy scale, I've seen a movie years back, it was directed by Amir Khan, and that movie was Tare Zameen Par, and that was
Sure.
talking about autism spectrum.
Exactly. Exactly right. Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, see, it's just this way that they are slightly different, tuned to a different frequency. That's all. Now, we being sane people, we label them, they are autistic, they're special child, they don't have a place in society. That's utterly wrong. So I think you are absolutely right. So it's a very heart-touching movie, about two
Yeah.
brothers, and the younger one, even though the elder one is excelling in tennis, and then his
Yeah.
parents actually compare this boy to his elder brother, poor fellow. But then they figure out that this guy is really good at many things, painting and some form of art, right? So that's exactly my point. Yeah, we should try to figure out what they are good at, and then the world will be a much healed place and much better place also. Yeah.
Definitely. So, Ritesh, in your tenure, have you, experienced any people of that kind, a special gifted people, in the IT industry?
Sure. So Akhil, see, autism is basically a spectrum, okay?
Yeah.
And I can tell you that people vary from the length or breadth of spectrum. Some people can be mildly autistic, some people can be, let's say, ADHD, some people can be on the much deeper side of spectrum, right? But in some
Yeah.
sense, we all are like on some other kind of things. We all have mood swings, we all have these our trials and
Mm.
tribulations, right? But see, I have without naming the boy, right? uh, you know I have met with a boy, and the boy
Okay.
basically had super delayed speech, did not speak until 6 years.
Oh.
Yeah, was his all milestones were delayed. He was totally, I would say, outcasted by his school. Somehow he managed to complete his class 12 education, extremely, struggleful, painful period for the boy, a lot of trauma. But the boy figured out that, he was very good in programming. Okay. And Akhil, I can tell you that that boy, while his, peers were, reading the normal subjects and scoring good marks in maths history, this boy developed an insane prowess in, in computer technologies, into AWS, into
Wow.
Python. And today, he's working for one of the biggest firms in the world, while
Fantastic.
his peers are still figuring to get into engineering colleges, right? So, and in fact, that is like, something which I've seen in person. There are many examples in the world. Like, for an example, there's a greatest swimmer, called as Michael Phelps, right? He was, the most decorated Olympian of all time, 16 gold medals. So he was actually born, autistic. He couldn't study in the class, but then he has made a unreal mark for himself. Yeah, so
That
I
is
say
true.
that, like, yeah, yeah. So basically, coming to my same point, if you are able to figure out what you are good at, you will be miles or light years ahead of other population. So they are autistic people are good people. It's just that we have to figure out what they are good at with little love, little care. Akhil, yeah.
100% Ritesh. That's a beautiful anecdote, and I really love that. I really love that determination of that boy, and I wish him all the best, and may he achieve a lot of milestones, in the coming for
Sure,
sure. Yeah.
sure,
So
sure,
now,
Akhil. Absolutely.
Ritesh, heading on to this one, like, what is your view on the talent of, the women workforce in the IT industry? I know this is like the most, under highlighted point. So what is your view on that?
Sure, Akhil. So, Akhil, and when we were preparing for this podcast, right, I did, narrate my views, right? See,
Yeah,
I believe that, women carry lot of, such right-sided qualities, which are empathy, which are care, which are attention to details. Not that, men do not carry, but, by design,
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
mother carry those, I would say, caring instincts, right? It is by design of God, correct?
That's
And
right.
therefore,
Yeah,
I believe that, the women population should have much higher proportions when we come to the diversity in the organization. It will make organization, much more productive place, because, we speak about that love, empathy, right? These things, come very naturally to them, because they play the role of a mother, they play the role of a daughter, and all those things, right? So I think, Akhil, that, while firms are trying a lot onto diversity, I believe, and there is good initiative from governments also to promote, the women education into, by putting a lot of investments and all that, right? So as Modi government started onto Beti Badhao, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. So,
yes,
I think, yeah, we are seeing the change definitely, but I think, we will, yeah, we still have a bit of a way to go, but I absolutely encourage, equi proportioned diversity as far as women is
100%.
concerned. They bring a lot of peace, they bring a lot of, care, they bring a lot of empathy. That's what I said, the cornerstone of a successful team, are brought in by, a lot of, yeah, diversity side of populations. Yeah. So that's my view. Yeah.
100%. That's an amazing, answer for that. Now, I see, a lot of women are also, successful people in the IT industry, and still,
Sure.
people have this feeling that, no, I mean, they're yet to come. I don't see that, if they are equal par, everyone is on equal par. Neither the man workforce is less, neither the woman workforce is less. It's like, both are equal par. But as you told, women have that empathy factor, that,
By design, by natural. Absolutely. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Sure.
And
Yeah.
they should take a bow because they are really doing well. Whoever is excelling in their career, they should they're doing a fantastic job. One example happens to be Mrs. Indra Nui, who is the you
Yes.
know who's in the main stage of PepsiCo. So she's an inspiration
Absolutely.
altogether.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely inspirational. Yes. True. I agree with that part. Yep.
All right, Ritesh. So, before we, conclude our podcast session, let's take a lighter route. All this while I was completely, bombarding you with questions on IT industry, about, your anecdotes, success stories. Then, what did you like the most about your mentors, about the mentorship. Now, at this moment, I'll just walk you through, let's say, ask you more about your likes and interests on a lighter route. So, your likes and interests.
Sure, sure. Likes and interest.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So, in the form of a rapid fire round. So, are you ready with the first question of the rapid fire round, Ritesh?
I'm scared because you are super well prepared, Akhil, to be honest. Okay. But I'll try to give my best shot. Yes. Absolutely.
Nothing too tough, I assure you. All right.
Sure, go ahead.
All all right, Ritesh. So Ritesh, since since we both are from India, I'm pretty much I know that cricket is going to be the answer, but still I would like to ask you this question: like, what is your favorite sports team of all time?
Favorite sports team, right? Yeah, okay, good. Akhil, my favorite sports team, of course, I'm backing India for this upcoming T20 World Cup. I've been
That's
watching,
right.
this series, the one days, the T20s and all.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the way, Indian team has played, I think remarkably well. The way
100%.
Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, I'm super big fan of them, right? So yeah, so
Likewise.
I love watching cricket. I love watching cricket. Yeah, that's like, most closer to my heart, followed by tennis. In tennis, specifically, I used to love to watch Roger Federer and then Nadal and then, all these players of same league. Yeah. So cricket
Yeah,
followed
yeah.
by tennis. Yeah.
Nice, nice. That's a unique choice. So,
Which
Ritesh,
one is
since
yours? Which one is yours, Akhil? Which one is yours?
I'm a football fan and a cricket fan, and I even try to let's say pitch myself sometimes into the sports which are really completely foreign to India, like ice hockey, NFL, or let's say
Okay.
baseball. I like to try and understand, or let's say Australian rules football. So I like to understand what is the sport about and what's the craze about. But I enjoy watching them. So
Sure. Sure.
I'm a
Sure.
huge
Sure.
fan of Virat Kohli. As a podcaster, I'll tell
Okay.
you I'm a huge fan of Virat Kohli and Sachin Tendulkar. Like they both really are the best.
They are God. Yeah. Yeah. They are near God. Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely,
Good.
absolutely. So, Ritesh, since you're based in Kolkata, like what is that, what is that favorite food that you like the most in the city?
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, great question, Akhil. Yeah, and that's what I said. I'm scared now. Okay, so good. So Akhil, lot many. So now it's about I think 15 plus years. Yeah, roughly 15 plus years for us in Calcutta. And many people would have said that maybe you have picked up the taste for Bengali food. But see, being born and brought up on the northern side of India, right? And even if like when I travel abroad, I still yearn and crave for Indian food. Okay,
That's
so
right. Yeah.
so yeah, favorite food is still. Yeah, I mean, once in a while we can have Bengali food, but then the food that gives me cravings is basically still the North Indian food. And coincidentally, yesterday when I was out for this sports event with my son, on the way back, we stopped by a dhaba and we had that sarson ka saag and then makki ki roti because
Oh,
it's a winter time.
man,
It's a winter time and it's pretty
that's a
good.
fantastic combination. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. If you happen to come to Calcutta, Akhil, be my guest. I'll take you to all these, such mouth-watering places.
I would love to come for sure.
Sure.
That's amazing. So, Ritesh, you told me that in our previous conversation that you come from Punjab. So, in Punjab,
Yep.
I know that Punjab is famous for chole bhature, for kulchas, and all of that. But what is that? What is that one dish that people don't know about about Punjab, or let's say from your hometown, that
Sure.
famous dish?
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. That's a very straightforward answer, and I can tell it, eyes closed also. So, and by no means I am associated with this food joint. It's just that I love that. Okay. So in Amritsar, right? Amritsar, like, is a very holy place of Harmandir Sahib, right? I mean, Golden Temple. So in Amritsar, there's a food joint called as Kesar Ka Dhaba. And
Yeah,
Akhil, you have to Kesar Ka Dhaba, and you have to go there to try out their dal makhani. Okay.
dal
And
makhani.
Akhil,
Okay.
I can tell you
Hmm.
that Akhil, it's maybe 20% of dal and then 80% of ghee in that. Okay. And
Oh,
they
okay.
will not allow you to take out ghee that, I don't like fat and, I want to, eat simple and all that stuff. Yeah. So, so long time back, when I visited that place, they had given me this dal makhani with some rotis. And when I saw this, amount of ghee, basically, I started taking it out onto the plate or onto a, separate, I would say, bowl. The chef himself came in and he again poured back all the ghee into my dal and said that you cannot take it out. This is not the place for your fitness thing or your,
Oh,
fat feed. But you have to
hardball.
go there. It's a lovely food, just too good food. Yeah,
Trust me, I'm a South Indian by nature, but I love North Indian food. To my
sure.
annoyance of my elders, I have a lot of chapati, roti, and not rice. It's a very
Okay,
rare
sure,
combination in a South Indian that you see.
sure. That's good to know. Yeah, lovely,
Yeah.
very
So,
good.
Ritesh, since you come from Punjab, I mean, would you like to, teach some Punjabi word to, to the listeners, some word of Punjabi?
Sure. I mean, see, yeah, that's a good question, right? So, see, typically, Akhil, what happens is, right? I mean, both my parents were Punjabi, but my school circle was all Hindi-speaking people or English-speaking people,
All
right?
right.
So,
Yeah,
though I
yeah.
can understand Punjabi very well. I mean, even at my home, we barely speak Punjabi, right? But then, the
Ah,
way
okay.
typically you say, "Tusi kive ho ji?" How are you, right?
Okay,
So see,
मुझे
aaj
keep
kithe
going.
jana hai? Where do you want to
हाँ,
go, right? Then
yeah,
you say Rab Rakha, that God is great, right?
God is great. Yeah,
So yeah, those kind of things. Yeah, sometimes I use them and all that. Yeah.
nice,
So
nice.
that's how it is. Yeah. Yeah.
I do understand Punjabi a bit, but I don't speak so fluently, but I understand a
Sure.
little bit. Yeah.
Sure. Sure, Akhil.
Yeah.
Superb.
So yeah, again, heading by, the circling back to the same question, of Kolkata, what are the three restaurants that, you would like to recommend our listeners? You like your favorite three restaurants of Kolkata?
Okay, favorite three restaurants of Kolkata. Yeah, there are many actually. So, like, see, Akhil, if you come to Calcutta, which I've invited you already, right? You will struggle to find, top three places because, this is a foodie city, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
it's a little foodie city, and then you will love whatever, every restaurant is really, really good. Uh, if I were to pick top three, one thing, so we often go for our dinners at JW Marriott, right? So that's pretty widespread, I
Yeah.
would say buffet and all these things, right? My son loves to go there. That is one.
Okay.
There is one, which gives you a brunch, which is on the 20th floor. It is called as Altair. And that's a remarkable place. You can see a good view of entire Calcutta, pretty, high rise and then a lot of, wind flowing in. These are top two ones, and then any good dhaba. See, when you are stressed out from the work, you don't want to go to these fancy five stars, right? Then you simply hop onto a dhaba along with your family late in the night, and then
Simple ones.
catch up
Yeah.
onto some, yeah, catch up onto some Indian food, right? Yeah, so that's what these three are. But you should come there, and to the viewers of this podcast also. I mean, guys, if you are in Calcutta at any point in time, do give me a buzz. At least I
Yeah.
can show you some places. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got your answer from, you got the call from Ritesh now. And if you need anything, you can just directly DM and he'll be really happy to,
Please.
take you around Kolkata for sure.
Yes.
Now, having said that, what is your favorite movie franchise? I'll give you four Hollywood movie franchises and, you can just pick out one from this. So one happens to be the Harry Potter franchise, then the Lord of the Rings franchise, the Star Wars franchise,
Sure.
and the James Bond franchise. So which one do you like the most?
Yep. So, see, James Bond franchise is pretty good. There's always an element of surprise and all that stuff, right? But
Yeah.
it's quite some time now, Akhil, that, I'm being very selective with the movie. Reason being, we don't get much of a time unless it's a
Yeah.
plain
Yeah.
time, right? Unless it's a plain time. So, yeah, James Bond movies are good. Today, I think my son has gone to watch Avatar movie. He was inviting me also, which I couldn't. Yeah, but James Bond movie is good. Lot of suspense, lot of thrill, and yeah, and all that stuff. Yeah. But I do watch some of the Indian web series also, but very selective.
Yeah.
I mean, see,
Selective
we are
options.
at age now wherein, like, all
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
pomp and show of Bollywood and then dancing around trees, basically, that doesn't entice that much. Yeah. So yeah, I do watch a bit of suspense, side of
Yeah.
things. Yes.
Nice, nice. That's a very good pick for sure. I can definitely say. So now, having said that, like which one do you pick the most? Do you prefer the beaches or do you prefer the mountains?
Great stuff. Yeah, good question. Yeah. So you see, I'm born and brought up, right, Akhil, in northern India, right, which is place like Rishikesh. Basically, I've studied from
Ah,
interiors of Punjab, right. So I
nice.
have been
Yeah.
a mountain person. I've been a mountain person, and Akhil, see where I've been born and brought up, right. If you visit that place, you will find actually, see from my house, the serene blue Ganges is actually less than 100 meters away. Pure,
Oh,
unadulterated. Yes, absolutely. That's the view, which people crave for. That's the view, it's very difficult to find it out. Yeah. So I'm a mountain person, you know, uh, I mean, people spend a lot of money to, spend their summers in mountains. I spent my entire childhood in mountains actually.
yeah.
So from my place, Dehradun, Masuri, they're like quite nearby. Yeah. So you love the purity, and then you love the nature and all that. So I'm a mountain person, 101%. Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. So since you have, traveled the world, which country did you, I mean, did you get, let's say enticed the most, or let's say you just love the place the most?
Uh, I loved actually, in all honesty, and I loved actually Australia. So, the place where you
Oh,
are, right? Absolutely, yeah. So I've been to
yeah.
Melbourne, I've been to Sydney, and see, good part about that is fairly sunny, number one.
Yeah.
Not that maybe, it was the time of the year, it was good sun. I remember I visited close to December sometime, and then, it runs in
Mhm.
little rivers. It was quite sunny. It has a lot of good Indian restaurants also, right? I mean, I'm forgetting the name now, but good Indian restaurants. it doesn't get that screeching cold, at least, what you see in Europe or some other places. But again, see, for business, if you travel, you do travel. But if you ask me personally, I think I just love Australia. It's too good a city. Absolute lovely. Yeah.
Nice. That's my favorite city happens to be, Sydney. I just love the vibe about it, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, it's too good. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
very, very, helpful people also. I
Yeah,
remember,
yeah.
one of the very, very nice incidents, right? So I was in Melbourne, and I was all by myself, and one night actually, just trying to see the city and a bit of a nightlife, I literally lost my way, and I asked one of the police cars basically that I've lost my way, and then how do I go about it? And I think it's about 7 years back, though there were Google Maps and all, they were so courteous, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah, yeah.
actually dropped me back to my hotel in their car. So it was so good, so warm.
I'll tell you, I have a very interesting anecdote to share. I went to an Appian event in
Okay,
Sydney, and I
sure,
had a client call same, with one of my podcast client, and really the
sure,
podcast also released. So I was actually running late, and I was having my laptop, but I didn't know where to connect myself. So I asked the
sure.
organizers, you know, I need a place to charge my laptop. Do you have a chair? They gave me a complete cabin. They gave me
Wow.
a cabin, and they said, "How long do you need the call for?" I said, 45 minutes. They said, "Okay,
Sure.
you can go there, but just face towards this side so that people understand that you're taking the call." So I was like blown. I'm like, wow, this is such a courteous act for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Akhil. Absolutely. Yeah, they're very hospitable, lovely people.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
absolutely. And then I mean, but cricket, India versus Australia cricket is like, I would, it's not a rivalry cricket, it's a friendship cricket, I would say for sure.
Yes, that's right. Yep, yep, yep. Sometimes they win, now we are winning, right? So it's good. Yeah.
It's a game again, someone has to win, someone has to lose.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep,
Oh,
yep.
all right. So, I mean, since you watch a lot of Hindi films, or let's say while growing up, who was your favorite Bollywood actor?
My favorite Bollywood actor, right? Yeah. Okay, great question. See, I watch all the good movies, but I do like, see, again, I do like movies of Shah Rukh Khan. Guy acts with a lot of intensity. He gets
Yeah,
into the soul of the character. Unreal guy, absolutely right. One. But in terms of movies, I do like Amir Khan movies because, they are quite sensitive. They are made, with a lot of
yeah,
thought process, right? Like you said, Tare Zameen
100%.
Par, or Dil Chahta Hai, and all those movies, right? They have amazing, I would say, captivating stories, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So between Shah Rukh Khan, Amir Khan, new crop being, Rajkumar Rao, Ayushmann Khurrana, all these people have a very good sort of, Vikrant Messi. One of his movie,
yeah.
very latest, was
12th
12th
Fail.
Fail. 12th
Yeah.
Fail. If you've seen that one, a remarkable movie. Remarkable
That's
movie.
an
Yes.
that's an excellent movie, I would say. That deserves to be, on the highest pedestal of, achievement, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's based upon a real life. So all the
Yeah.
more relevant, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the final question to you, Ritesh, what was the last song that you have heard in your playlist, or let's say anywhere for that matter?
Last song. Yeah. I was, listening something in my car yesterday. Uh, it was from B Prak, right? I mean, B Prak is an Indian singer, right? A
Yeah.
Punjabi guy, but he sings with a lot of conviction, and he sings actually a lot of patriotic songs, right? So the song which I was
Hmm.
hearing was basically Teri Mitti. I think it's from
Yeah,
a
famous one.
Teri Mitti, right? Very famous one. In fact, Akhil, he was in Calcutta some time back, and I went to his concert also. Remarkable. I mean, guy has a throw, and I mean, he'll make you emotional with his songs, right? I mean, awesome
Really
throw. V Prak, yeah. See,
nice.
though they are very good singers also, right? Arijit Singh, and then now very recently, I listen a lot to Vishal Mishra also. Vishal Mishra has sung a lot of good songs,
Hmm.
right?
Heard of
But
him, yeah.
the Yeah, yeah. But the recent song, which I was playing in my car was, this B Prak Teri Mitti. Yeah, it's a very nice singer. Which singer do you like in India, Akhil?
I'm a huge fan of Sonu Nigam.
Sorry, sorry.
I'm a huge fan of Sonu Nigam.
Oh, Sonu Nigam. Yeah, yeah. Very clinically correct singer, man. His notes don't go from here to there. Yeah,
Yeah.
very good guy. Very
And
good
he's
guy.
good. And then if you talk about the yesteryear people, I like Mohammed Rafi Saab and Kishore Kumar Saab. They literally, I can listen to their songs any day. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
magic of
They're
it.
evergreen. That's why they say they are evergreen. Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
They
Akhil.
are, for
Sure.
sure. With all due respect, for sure they are. Those songs actually, give me a good vibe. Though I'm not from that time, but still, they have that
Correct.
vibey
Yeah, they
feeling.
are like, yeah, yeah, very good one, very positive ones also, those
Yeah,
those songs. Absolutely,
yep,
Akhil. Yep. Hmm?
yep. All right, Ritesh. So, thanks, once again, thank you so much for, taking time from your busy schedule and, being part of my podcast initiative. It was such a lovely conversation today. And, as the conversation was going on, it was so flowing. And I just loved the way you started your journey, how you have your insights on AI, your take on the autism spectrum in the IT industry and, about the importance of, the women workforce in the IT industry and your
Correct.
amazing anecdote, which I, connected with Mr. Garrett Bale. So that was something, that was really like, that struck a chord with me. And it was really, really, amazing conversing with you through this medium. So thank you so much again, Ritesh, for this amazing opportunity.
Sure, sure. And Akhil, it's a real pleasure because, Akhil, while we do talk to a lot of hosts, a lot of, such public forums, see, two things which stood out with you. One, you being from IT, your questions were bang on, spot on, and very intelligently crafted. They were not random run of the mill, but they are, in fact, all of them are aimed at how the newer workforce, the essence of all the question is how the newer workforce can excel in their career. I think and that somebody can only ask who has been through this, this IT journey itself, right? So
Yeah.
you were not just well prepared, you were well researched also. And Akhil, we share many things in common. India,
Yeah.
North Indian food, Indian
Yes,
actors, right? Virat Kohli.
absolutely.
So it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Definitely, Sunday evening, good time. And one
Yeah.
more time, Akhil, I'll extend my invitation. If at any point in time you are in Calcutta, okay, please come over. You will be my guest. I'll show you the city around.
Definitely, Ritesh. I'll be there for sure, and very soon I'll come. I'll just plan out my my schedule accordingly for sure. Yeah. So, listeners, on this note, this is your host Akhil Navluri signing off. We will be back with another podcast episode with another eminent industry leader very soon. Till then, keep listening. Goodbye. Stay tuned, and au revoir. Thank you.